Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for another in the Edmonton Arts Council series of workshops for the working artist. Today, we're very happy to be talking with Josh Semchuk and Katie Soden on the subject of advertising using social media in an arts context. This series of workshops is ongoing through the winter and spring. We hope just spring at this point. Watch for sessions over the next month on governance through a crisis for arts organizations, on pricing your visual art and craft work, and on casting with a lens focusing on accessibility and inclusion. If you have topics that you would like to see for future sessions, either send me a message in the chat function or email us at grants@edmontonarts.ca. We are honored to be working and living in Treaty 6 territory and to be the beneficiaries of generations of stewardship by the First Nations, Dene, and Métis peoples. The Edmonton Arts Council is striving to extend that spirit of fellowship and peace represented by Treaty 6. As more and more of our audiences get their information about the world from effectively each other rather than from traditional top-down media sources, advertising on those same platforms have skyrocketed. In November, Josh Semchuk of Bottom Line Productions and Katie Soden, who has at one point or another did marketing for every single band in the greater Edmonton region, and every single music venue as well, held a fantastic workshop on maintaining an effective social media presence for your work as an independent artist. That session is available online through the EAC's YouTube channel. Sometimes, though, you need to punch through the noise, and a little paid advertising can sometimes do wonders. Here to talk about that are Katie Soden and Josh Semchuk.
Hey, everybody. David, thank you for that. You know, I don't know many people who are able to actually say my first name and last name without the UA and do it without sounding like they're kind of drunk. Josh Semchuk, you know, that's why I go off of Joshua Semchuk. So I really appreciate your effort there. That was quite something. That was quite something. I'm really pleased to be back here with my friend and colleague Katie Soden, who I didn't know I was working with in all kinds of ways for years, and then she joined us here at BLP. And I've always been a big fan of her work. She's never been afraid to tell me, well, we've been working together or not, that's a stupid idea. Why are you thinking that? And I have a ton of respect for that kind of openness. And you'll see from our presentations that we just like to talk about stuff. We promise we won't read slides. If we do, then send us a note in the chat. She's much better at the chat than I am. She goes off the chat and then I stop talking and she answers it.
Yes, I will keep my eye on the chat function.
You are indeed really good at that.
That was such a glowing introduction. I'm shocked and impressed. Thank you, Josh. Whenever I think I can't do something, Josh tells me I can. So. Anyway.
That's very sweet. Okay, enough about us. I'm going to share screen. Hold tight, everybody. Sliding over.
Come on, technology.
That's my tech. There we go. You don't want to see text from my wife. There we go. Okay. We're back. We're back with advertising and social and digital media. I'm actually kind of I'm honored. We're both honored that David would bring us back. About 10 minutes ago, I learned that it wasn't because he felt sorry for us. It was genuine, and which is awesome. And so, yeah, now I can't see any chat, Katie, so you'll have to.
Yeah, I'll be in charge of the
welcome to advertising on social and digital media, everybody. I'm sure you all remember what we talked about last time because you're all back. You're all back from the last one. But in case you weren't, we talked about Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, of course, and we're now adding Google to the mix. And in the end, we'll touch on some other stuff that we don't think we'll get to here because it's small within the funnels that we're thinking of. YouTube advertising, pre-roll, that kind of thing. We may be able to get to some of that. Should any of you be interested in that sort of thing? If you see on the slide to the right, we talked about that we didn't have time for digital marketing last time because it was all about organic posting. We're going to still deal with organic posting to some degree because it's still a part of your overall marketing plan. we're actually quite delighted that David would include this kind of a topic, because we've found as marketers over time that a lot of clients forget that there is an option to advertise. And to David's point, we're all on these particular outlets now, and there are affordable ways to do this kind of thing. But you shouldn't ever think that it's not a possibility to spend money. You can spend it, as you'll find, you can spend as little as $5, $20. You can go as high as having a big chunk of your marketing budget, like maybe a quarter of it, put towards this sort of thing. And we'll get to that. Anything about this stuff, Katie?
Yeah, I mean, sort of what I like most about these social ads is, in the same way that you'll notice as you use it, it's always pushing you to buy a little bit of ad. I feel like this is maybe the most impact you can make with a small amount of money. If you don't have very much money to spend, maybe you've never spent any money on digital ads, this is a way that you can experiment and try it yourself and figure it out without, losing huge amounts of money if you do it wrong or if it doesn't work. It really opens you up to experimentation, and you can give it a shot. It's worth a shot.
It's always worth a shot. You're right.
Yeah.
Remember, as we've learned a lot in the last year about privacy, these are private. Facebook and Twitter and Instagram owned by Facebook, Google, these are private companies. They're going to try to make sure you're spending as much money as possible. Talking about geographical boundaries and demographics and the more places that you can go to do stuff, but stick to your plan, which we'll talk about. Here are the things that we're going to work on. I realized as I was working on this with Katie over the last little while that I have not been privy to the word content as much as I have in the last 5 years. I don't know, why does it feel like the word content is ubiquitous all of a sudden? Where did it come from? There was a time when we just talked about B-roll or photos, and now everything is content. Content, yeah. So content is a major part of what you do, but you don't need to worry about the jargon. If you're working in photos, if you're working in video, we just ask as marketers and as publicists, please have really quality stuff, which we'll get to. This is a continuation of our last one. We believe in planning. There's a possibility that you've tried this kind of thing before and you've never really thought, okay, well, what are the steps that I have to take to get through it? And we believe that there's no one fits all way to do a plan, and a plan is never set in stone. That's a rule of thumb that we've always come to believe. You have to test and you have to try. And Katie's the big one for testing. She talked about that in the organic social presentation, and by all means, I'm sure she'll get to it again today. Mm-hmm. But the key part of all of this is that someone needs to take responsibility for it. Whether you're a solo artist or you're working in a small company or even a large company, somebody has to take ownership of the online digital planning.
Yeah, even if it's as a volunteer position, it needs to be someone's job. And I would say even more so once you start to use advertising, once you just start to incorporate the paid function into your social media, because nothing is going to derail and make it so ineffective as if you have, multiple staff members and board members all hopping on and spending little bits of money in different ad accounts, and everybody gets that pop-up that said, you can reach this many people if you put $7 in here. And it just has to be something that's a plan. And if everyone is doing that, you're not going to have a plan, and you're not going to be able to keep track of what you've done and how much you've spent. And usually it's people trying to help, saying oh, if I do this thing that Facebook has said,
yeah.
I can help the person who's in charge of social media by putting an ad on my credit card, and it is not going to help. So it's important to go over whose job it is, and make sure it all funnels through that sort of one source. I think with organic social media, it can be more than one person's job if you have a good plan about who's doing what and when. But when it comes to the ads, it should really all go through one person, or you're just going to lose track of it. And
Absolutely. Yeah, and I echo that whole, it's not malicious. The people who are wanting to be a
yes,
part of it are truly believing that they're helping the project out. And there's a way to manage that. And if anybody has questions about that afterwards, happy to talk about it. But it's don't take away that enthusiasm. Having a plan, maybe even giving people responsibility for certain posts. We've had a lot of success with some of our projects at BLP where we encourage people backstage or behind the scenes on projects to post at certain times, to take photos of stuff that's happening that we wouldn't have access to, especially now now that the government has allowed for these types of rehearsals. Nobody else will be in the room, but the people will be able to take photos and share with everybody what's going on. And that's still a big part of the plan. Now we're talking about encouraging taking some of those pieces and making them into advertising, or at least awareness for what it is that you're doing socially, by involving everybody in this process.
yeah.
For that, yeah.
Yeah, just when it comes to ads and social ads, maybe like the best part of it, like my favorite part of using social media ads is all the different statistics that it gives you, all the information that you can get, how you can figure out exactly how it worked. Like when you put an ad in a magazine, you don't know how many people saw it. You know how many magazines got printed, but you don't know how many eyeballs went in front of that ad. But with social ads, you do. And again, if too many people have their hands in the pot, you're going to lose track of that. And to me, that's a lot of the purpose of doing this type of advertising, is you can get so much information about the money you spend and where it went.
Yeah, and Katie has taught me a lot about the value of that sort of data. I come from a world where the impressions are a key part of it, and we'll look at impressions versus actual click-throughs. I know that clicks on ads are something that was really popular when online ads first came about, but people get discouraged sometimes when there isn't enough click-through, and I find that in the same way that we know that there'll be X amount of cars past a billboard or an X amount of eyeballs on a newspaper ad or a magazine ad, that the impression can matter, but the data really helps you test and helps you determine, do I really want to advertise to these college students 18 to 25, or do I really want working moms between the ages of 32 and 40? And do you really want, we have an opportunity right now, as we've been discovering, for a lot of people that are producing online content that is usually not, that we can go across the country to inspire people to tune in Toronto and in Vancouver, and in some cases across the pond. And there may be some opportunities to retarget geographically that way to build new audiences that may donate in the future, or perhaps a digital program will be developed by your company in the long run. Katie and I talked about, for the purpose of what we're working on here, for all of your ability to understand how to place these kinds of opportunities, to consider it as having a widget, an actual something you can put in your hand, or an experience, one or the other. You're selling a ticket to something, or are you selling the widget itself?
And maybe if people just feel like it, you could type into the chat and let us know what sort of thing you're marketing. Might help guide our conversation a little. Are you selling tickets to events? Are you looking just for attendance to free events? Are you trying to sell, a physical product? Like, are you trying to sell CDs or artwork or things like that? Yeah, just maybe type it along in there and we can all take a look at what each other is working on.
Yes, interactive, yay. All right,
Yeah.
so there's some chats coming up. So
Good.
we're going to talk about the kind of budget to commit. I think that, like we mentioned at the beginning, you can plan to have I mean, some people say you should have 25% of your entire budget go towards marketing, or a quarter. Some say 10%. And so there, you may not have those kinds of ratios because you're not entirely certain how much is this product going to sell. You know that you have hard costs of presenting a project or of creating a product, and you have to ensure that you cover all of those costs. But then if you were to consider planning, like Katie was saying, with small amounts, $5 to $10 or $20 for a social approach, or to spend hundreds of dollars for a larger Google targeted campaign, it all just depends. It all just part of the budget planning process. And then finally, sorry, Katie.
No, go ahead, finish up.
I think finally, from a creative perspective, and we'll talk about this as we go. Katie and I have always been very honest with our clients when we say, don't put too much stuff in your ad, especially a digital ad, especially when they're really tiny. Make sure that it's really quite possible to get all of the key information across. And remember, it has to go by pretty quickly. Our rule of thumb, and from a digital display perspective, is the 6-second turnaround for an outdoor ad that Pattison has. And while you're in your car or you're walking by, consider it the same concept while you're online as well, before it rotates out. Sometimes people try to, they have a difficult time interpreting the difference between a print ad and a digital ad. Print, you can linger, and digital, you can't.
Yeah, like in your organic social posts, you might find that you're having a lot of success with long content. Like it can be okay to have a couple paragraphs of description, long event descriptions, long Instagram captions. But when you're doing it for ads, you want as few words as possible. You want to get across as much as you can that will make somebody click on your ad to get that extra info. You want to engage them enough with just a few words, like as little as you can get away with, to get people's attention, because people are going to know it's an ad. You know, like the way that you know it's an ad. When you're looking over your social media accounts, you know which is a promoted post, sponsored post, just a straight up ad on social media. So you want to try and make sure it's really relevant to your event or your product.
Yeah, and even if they don't click through, they could even recall it and look it up some other time. We've started taking websites out of our ads in some cases because people will search. The ability to go and search for stuff is more prevalent than ever.
Yeah,
and
usually there's something you can click through.
Yeah, and clearly if they can recall, because your creative is straight to the point and clean, then they'll be able to use that recall down the road to type it in to search for it.
Yeah.
New slide. Hey, there we go.
Yeah, we've already kind of started talking about this one.
Yeah, but see, that's why these slides flow one into the other. It's designed that way. Oh yeah, good storytelling. Katie, you've always been really particular about your visuals, and I think that's a good thing.
Well, I find with social ads, sometimes whatever visuals you have available can make or break the ad. And again, like I'm not a graphic designer, I'm not a digital strategist, but using the trial and error of social media ads, you can figure out for yourself what's going to work, you know, based
you
on what you
undersell
have.
yourself. You are a digital strategist. You're quite good at it. Yeah, you are. Yeah.
I don't have a master's degree in digital strategy, is what I'm
You
saying.
don't need it. You have a master's degree in real life. Oh, that's so cheesy. Oh God. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, and I think it's particularly important because you're going to see if you've tried social media ads in the past, if you've already given it a shot, or even just kind of fiddled around with the with the setup for the ads, you'll notice that it's often going to ask you for different sizes of images or video. And you're going to end up with some of the formats will have like a vertical or a horizontal or a square image, or it'll require video, or all these different things. And again, if you don't have a graphic designer at your disposal, and you're not the one working on that, it can be really hard or even really expensive to get all of those different sizes to be perfect. But I think it's okay if you don't have everything it's asking for. You have the option of not using things that don't fit well with your design or with your images. And don't be afraid that if you don't have a vertical ad, that you have to do it anyway, because there's a box for it to tick off when you're building your ads. But you don't have to. If it just doesn't fit, don't do it. It's better to do less
Exactly.
well.
It's not going to look good. You're right.
Yeah.
And if so, you don't have that vertical tall block, and you only have the big box.
Yeah, like if you've got this beautiful landscape image that's, wide and narrow, and you just can't make it fit into a vertical image, untick those boxes when you're building your ad. It's okay not to use them. And maybe for the next time, you can think of that ahead of time, and maybe you'll have those sort of images. Or if you just don't have video, sometimes you don't have video. Video can be the most expensive thing to produce, depending on the kind of artwork that you have.
And maybe your video doesn't need to be as high gloss quality as some of the trailers that we see out there. Again, maybe it's a behind the scenes opportunity for somebody rehearsing, or somebody in the kitchen making your product, and we see a really fast 30-second version of how it's put together. Cool. As you see, we have content creation. That's our favorite word, our word of the day, content. And the creation of it is, I think, I just love these two words together, even though, like I say, didn't hear about it before, about 5 or 7 years ago. I've been fascinated by the theories behind content creation and what they do from a marketing perspective. I've read a lot about it. We've done a lot of research. We've worked with clients about it. We believe too, like others have talked about, and we can talk about it afterwards if you all like, that the content creation at its core is the opportunity from a copy perspective, blogs, releases, quotes, thoughts, to really, it's less of selling your experience, say, or selling your product. It is about encouraging people to interact with you, to be a part of what it is that you're providing. Some of that stuff is very organic in nature. It goes back to posting something on your Facebook page or on your website and linking to it. But you have an opportunity to, through the ad buy system, bring people back to the reason why you want them interested in what you're doing in the first place. Remember, not everything has to be sell, buy now, because I think that can be implied, especially if somebody's attracted to the recipe or the rehearsal process. One of the most interesting content creation approaches was by the blender that created a series of videos called Does It Blend, and tossed in everything from
I remember Does It Blend?
Selfies to iPhones, and they just grinded the bejesus out of it. There was no reason to do it past the first iPhone, but they just kept jamming things in there, and people tuned in to see how industrial the blades were and how does it blend? Yes, it does. How it grinded. And so it was never buy this, it was implied that it was. And that sort of content creation can be quite clever. I think that it can be overloaded, and I think people can get tired of it after a while, because eventually, especially with the work that we're all doing, we still want to put that piece of art in someone's hands, or we want somebody to sit down to be able to watch it. So we do have a timeline and a deadline for which to get that done. So eventually, yes, you'll have to sell something. But creating this kind of content, whether it's good photos or video or stuff that's clean, will be able to get in front of them. And the same with your social media posts. Sell them. We can talk about boosting. I wrote in don't boost because I've had experiences with it. Katie has had good experiences with boost. I think it always depends on what it is that you're trying to accomplish. If you're testing, if you're trying it out for the first time, boosting can be an opportunity. And then to graduate to the bigger business page system, which we'll get to. We'll show you an example of it. Anything else on this slide, Katie?
The one thing I just wanted to touch on is the targeting when you're building your ads. Again, the thing that I love about social media advertising is you get to choose exactly what kind of people are going to see your ads, and you're able to pick people who like things that are similar to what you do, um, and choose for them to see your ads. And again, this is something you can't do with any other kind of advertising. Like if you try to advertise on radio or in newspapers, it doesn't work. But think really hard about your targeting when you're doing it, because a lot of the time I think people are a little too broad with their targeting ideas.
Mhm.
So like, for example, if you are a jazz musician and you're trying to advertise your CD release party, targeting to people who like music is probably too broad, because then you're going to get everyone who likes every single kind of music. And people who click that they like music because they like anime soundtracks are not going to come to your jazz concert. People who listen to the top 40 country music station, they're not going to come to your jazz music concert. So think about each thing that you target, and think about the ways. It's almost like a backwards way of looking at it. Like if people who like jazz music like music, but people who like music maybe don't necessarily like jazz music, or whichever thing you're doing.
Well said. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I always
that's
try and take it backwards when I look at my targeting. It's like, what do I have? Do those people like my thing, or do the people who like my thing like what I've targeted?
no, that
Um,
makes total sense. That's a good segue to the next one, because now we're talking about taking all that content that we've been
mhm,
talking about and actually marketing it from a purchasing perspective. And I really like what you're saying about ensuring that you're not saturating, or you're trying to get everywhere. I know
mhm,
from experience that when you make online ads, social ads, digital ads, a part of your overall plan. People use funnels, your media mix, whatever jargon or marketing slogan you'd like to use. It's still part of the plan that we highly recommend and we emphasize. Your social posting lives right next door to your digital awareness. If you've got the money, by all means, go ahead and buy the billboards, buy the radio, buy the TV. Call us anytime if you want to discuss it. But that kind of stuff is designed to hit large swaths of the audience at once. And if you've bought an ad on, if you've bought something on Calgary Trail that is flashing as I'm listening to the Bear driving home from work, and you're running your ads around the same time at rush hour, it's not going to be cheap, but you're going to get a lot of people. Will those people will they be relevant to what you're selling? Perhaps. That's the top of mind content marketing approach, where we get people that haven't thought of us before into our heads, and then we bring them online through this sort of content marketing awareness that we've been talking about, to give them sort of a front of mind approach. So they've heard of it before, they remember it, they may not look it up, but they may, after they see it on their feed, because they're reading something and it pops up because a pixel has followed them around, or they're online at Facebook and Instagram and an ad shows up. The social stuff that Katie's talked about before that we've touched on is a really good friend of mine, sort of water cooler, word of mouth approach. Have you seen this? Did you hear about that? Influencers, that sort of thing.
yeah,
As you can see with our sorry, Katie.
yeah. Social media is the modern water cooler.
Totally.
It's when
The
people say
influence.
word of mouth, often what they mean is they heard about it on social media. But because they
Mhm.
heard about it from their friends who are on social media, they consider it word of mouth. Yeah.
This list of stuff, as you can see here, we're not going to, of course, read off the screen, but there are
Mhm.
different examples of that sort of content marketing approach when you want to get in front of people. Well, e-news has become awfully popular, in some cases maybe too popular. I think a lot of people are deleting a lot of the stuff that shows up in their inboxes because they get a lot of it, catchy headlines, or from somewhere that has content that you really want to read. Those kinds of lead generation, for example, from an e-news sign up or registration, can come directly from an ad that you buy. The social ad or the digital ad doesn't necessarily have to be buy this ticket or buy this piece of art. It can be sign up for our e-news if you want to learn more about us in the long run. And that's the long game with this kind of work, is because you don't know if it's going to be someone that's going to buy right away, or they're going to dip their toe in the water by reading what you have to offer. They're going to follow you on Facebook. Eventually, one day, when they really like something that you're doing, they'll engage. Then they'll buy. You'll have your sales. That's when, after it, you want to go to the customer retention to keep coming back.
Yeah, and with these sort of social media ads, it does have a little bit of that instant gratification sort of feeling, because you can watch it happen in real time. You can see exactly who your ads have been in front of. You know, in some cases, you might notice immediate ticket sales, or immediate, you know, responses or registrations, in ways that often you don't experience in other forms of advertising. But that doesn't mean it's not still part of the long game.
Absolutely.
Because you want to use those little bits of instant gratification to build over time.
Exactly. Before I'd met, I had met Katie when she was working at Metro, but before I started to really work with her, I had never. I'm a big fan, for example, of. I'm segging into a story. Trust me, I'll get there. I'm a big fan of knowing that your audience is going to be engaged with you at different times for different reasons, especially with the kind of stuff the kind of product that we put out. And I use Metro as a really good example, because I was, of course, I'd gone to see Metro. There's places where I could
That's Metro
see
Cinema.
stuff on Metro Cinema. I could see stuff on the big screen. I could see a David Lynch film that was never going to be released on Cineplex Odeon. And I did that all the time before I had kids, that sort of thing. But the Saturday morning thing was never on my radar until I had kids. And I remember The Dark Crystal coming, and of course we can watch The Dark Crystal on TV, but I wanted my son to see The Dark Crystal on the big screen because I had grown up with it. And it wasn't until I left the theater that we looked it up online, Cohen and I, and we found out that he was the same age, 7, that I was when I saw it when it was first released in the mass media, the mass theater. And I wrote to Metro at the time, and I told them what I said just now. And Katie says, "We love those stories," and she posted it. And I'll never forget that, because absolutely we love those stories, because they bring other people who may not have considered that Metro Cinema has something for me at this time in my life that I never thought was relevant before.
Yeah, and to take that back around to the advertising a little bit, when I was making an ad for the Dark Crystal, when I had that job, I would have targeted the ad to men Josh's age who have kids the age of his child, knowing that those are the people who would want to come to those kind of events.
And I didn't even know I wanted to come. I didn't even know I wanted to come. And then I did. That's that eureka moment that we're all looking for.
Yeah, and those very specific targeting options that I recommend. Is if you're doing something that's nostalgic for, you know, people who have school-age children, those you can target people of that age who have that age of child. You know, you can pick parents who have children who are 7 as an option, and if that's who you know you want your ad to be in front of, there's a way to do that with social media ads.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, more content. Here's the big question. This is everything that we've been talking about so far is leading up to this business accounts or boosting process. And
Yes.
Facebook and Instagram, of course, along the same vein. And Katie, why don't you dive in? You've had some experience boosting, and then I'll talk about my personal feelings around what I've learned with it.
Sure. So when we talk about the business account versus the boosting, this is specifically relevant to Facebook and Instagram. So Facebook and Instagram link together because they're owned by the same company. And you've almost certainly noticed if you're using pages and using social media professionally or for your organization, that it's always trying to get you to buy an ad. Every time you do something that it thinks you've done well, it says, put a little money towards this. Do you want to boost this post? Do you want to boost this post? Do you want to make an ad of this?
This many more people can see your post if you do
Yes,
this.
you can reach 10,000 people if you do this or that. That is not what I recommend doing. If you've made it all the way here, you're interested in these ads, you want to do a really good job, there's nothing wrong with doing the boosting, but you're not getting all of the options and all of the stats and everything that's available from social media ads by doing it this way. So if you've never tried using Facebook for business, which includes Instagram, I really, really recommend you try it. If you don't like it, can't figure it out, it's okay, but you should definitely try it because it was eye-opening to me when I figured it out. So that's, business.facebook.com is how you set it up if you haven't already, and it'll walk you through how to set it up if you've never done it before, and that allows you to set up an ad account. So with the boosting is like the fast and easy way to build an ad. And that's why they're always pushing it to you, because it's so fast, so easy that you won't even realize you spent the money. But it doesn't.
But it
Yeah.
may be up your alley. It may be up your alley. You may not have the time or the wherewithal for the business page, and by
Yeah.
all means, put the boost. But make sure you plan accordingly
Yeah.
and maintain your budget that way.
Yes, but definitely try setting up an ad account because you're going to find that you have so much more control over all those targeting options. You get so many more stats and information about the ads that you've run, instead of just like, okay, your ad's over, it reached this many people. It'll tell you where, it'll tell you who, it'll tell you how many times they clicked on your ad. It'll show you if it showed the same person the ad 5 times or 1 time. All this information is so much more useful. And I highly, highly recommend that if you haven't tried it before, you should set up an ad account. You can always go back to boosting. And then I would also say, though, if you've never done anything at all as far as advertising, you might want to try a boost so that you have something to compare to when you're trying the ad account, so you know what the difference is.
Which is
if that makes some sense.
Totally. This
Yeah.
is a screen grab. Sorry, Katie.
Yes. So I was just going to say, maybe again in the chat, if people want to tell us whether or not you have already been doing social ads or if you're brand new. Again, so we kind of know where to focus.
Yeah.
But yeah, what Josh just got here, go for it.
Yeah, a screen grab of Bottom Line Productions ad account. And so it has a few of the clients we've worked on. Uncle Larry's was a campaign for a bunch of people at Christmas time. We don't need to go through that list. But you'll see that it gives you various results that are hyper specific: reach, impressions. I'm a big impressions fan. I'm also big on the cost per result. We want to get that per link click as low as possible, which can be done by ensuring that you have a quality post that is seen in as many places as possible. But I'm not as married to the click-through as others might be. I find that if your work is creative and your message is clear, people will get that. They'll be impressed by it, literally, and they will hunt you down at some point, especially combined with some of top of mind, and most importantly, the water cooler social, hey, have you heard of this? You got to check this out approach.
Yeah, so Josh, just so you know, we've got kind of a mix here. We've definitely got some people who've never done an ad before. Cool. And we have some people who've boosted and done and a few people who've also done used the ad account before. Cool. Again, I love this ad account. Maybe it makes me a nerd, but
yeah, you're such a nerd.
I love how much you can play with it, and if your ad isn't going well, how you can change it and turn the course. Something that was recommended to me when I first started doing Facebook ads is if you've got 4 or 5 different images that you're using for your event, I've primarily done it using for events, put them all in. Make 6 different ads with your 6 different images and check on them every day and turn off the ones that don't work. So you really can mess around with it. Yeah.
Let's expand upon that. So you can see here in this tab, we've got campaigns, and we'll use Brian Webb Dance Company. It's the entire season. So that's the whole campaign. Now you could break it down per show, however you want to go. The ad set and then the ads was what Katie's referred to. So we're going to jump ahead one slide to what the ad set is. And the ad set is a series of ads. In this one, for our friends at Untitled Chapter French, we did an English ad set and we did a French ad set. And like Katie said, there's a series of ads within each of those sets that may have a different message or a different creative to see, like Katie's saying, that kind of testing. It's all comes back to the content creation aspect. We didn't do the tab about the ads because we don't want to get down into the nitty gritty of these clients' pieces.
So some of that is private information if you get any deeper.
That's why you don't see. That's why you don't see the budget line here. But you'll see that the cost per result is. It depends on a lot of this. We found, again, this is your testing. You'll find that you'll run for Spirits on Ice, like Katie said, 6 different images, and as it goes down to the ad column, you'll find that while the reach and impressions were 6,500 for this ad set, each ad will show a different number of impressions. You can drop the ones that aren't performing as well, turn them off, and make sure that your budget is redirected at the ones that are working. How often do you check, Katie? Like, should it be daily? Should it be every depending on how long your timeline is?
Yeah, every day. And I'm a nerd, so sometimes it's like 2 or 3 times a day because I just can't stay away. But I really do think it's important to check it every day. If you look across at all these different columns that are available when you're in the ad account, something else you can notice there's a column called frequency. This is something that you don't get to see if you're doing boosted posts. So that's on average how many times an ad was shown to someone. So the idea that most people only see it one time means that you're reaching new people. You know, there's all these options. Yeah, and I'm looking at the cost per result, which is another thing that I think is great. And you'll notice like some of those ones down at the bottom there are in like the 45-cent sort of range. To me, that's great. Like if you can keep your results below $1, you're doing great. And if you're really doing great, you can get them, you know, down below 10 cents each. And then you're getting a lot of bang for your buck.
Some people's goal is to have a penny per.
Sorry, there's just a question in the chat, Josh, about where on this image would you see the different ads running simultaneously? That would be in the ad column. So it would be one tab over that you would see that. Again, the only reason we didn't show that there is because there's client information in there. But if you kind of think of these as folders, it's like you've got your campaign, and inside your campaign, you have your ad set, and then your ads go inside of there. So if your campaign
is to the content creation we were doing before.
So if your campaign is your theater season, then maybe your ad set will be the first show of the season, and your ads will be 6 different cast photos from that season with various copy. Or if you have, I don't know, what's another example? If you're doing a CD release, say you've got your CD release and your ad set is one for the physical event, one for downloading a copy of the album, and you've got an ad set for, I don't know, something else too. Pre-orders, maybe, something like that. And then your ads are within that. And you might have, so you'll have album artwork if you're trying to sell the album. You'll have live photos if you're trying to have a release event. You know, That's sort of the concept. And again, with each image, you can have different copy as well and see what works better, which one's more engaging. Again, I really think having
which
something
message is
quick
more
and
effective?
snappy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. So then this takes us to outside of a social media campaign ad buy system and into digital buys, and what has become a new sort of lexicon jargon, real-time bidding. There was a trend for a while, and you can still do it. You can, if you have the time and you have the wherewithal, we would encourage you to sign up for a Google ad account, and you can track and build and create content, visually beautiful images or ads that would fit into the different, many different sizes that Google has. And if you don't, then you can work with a third party, at somebody else to do it for you. And there are people that we enjoy working with, and we'll get to that. Google had, before, while we were building this campaign, and Katie and I to present to you, Google came out last week with some news that they were going to start getting rid of cookies, third-party cookies, and the Pixel, which is a system that's designed to follow
For
you
tracking.
around.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people use that. They found it effective, especially the ticketing, the online ticketing systems, where if I go to look at something and I don't really buy, or I shut the cart down, or I walk away from my screen, the system will remember me and follow me around. Now that can get super annoying, and I'm sure we've all been victim of it, where we have that shoe ad that follows us around, or God, I don't know, something that I may have looked at a website somewhere because I was curious about a car or a new model of something. And then that ad just seems to float everywhere I go, even in my Gmail. Google isn't getting rid of that. They make a lot of money. They want people to, they want people who are buying ads in the way that we're discussing to simply use their tracking system. They're trying to get away from when you're reading an article, say, and you go to the bottom and there's those really crappy ads that say, I can't believe she wore this, ... And they want you to click
Lose
on it
belly
to
fat
learn.
with one simple vegetable. Yeah.
Woo-hoo! Yes, eat this one thing every day and it will change your life. What is that one thing? And then you click on it and then it takes you around. Then it follows you around as you go. And so by working on your own in Google Ads, you're going to work with their software. Or if you work with a third party that is an official Google supplier, which we'll get to. Excuse me, I'm so excited.
The air is so dry.
It's not COVID, yes, it's spring, dusty. If you work with a third party, that they will have the proper software that will give you the quality impressions and the data that we love so much about how often people see your ad, how they react, whether they click through. Again, if the click-throughs are super important to you, you get that. If the impressions are super important to you, we're working right now to ensure that we often measure in a 5-to-1 ratio. We would like to see, a 3-to-1, and we may work our way up to 5-to-1 this summer, depending on how vaccinations go and as people start to do hopefully more things in the second half of 2021, that people buy more stuff. Right now, for example, we're working with clients and we'll do tracking ads through Google, and the amount of money that they earn through ticket sales are right now hitting a 3-to-1 mark. So I invest $500 and I'm making $1,500 in ticket sales. We'd like that to go up to $2,500 per ticket sales, but that's going to depend on what the product is and what the experience is as we go forward with stuff. Which brings us to the desire to continue with the buy local that you're seeing so much of, and that we encourage everyone to be a part of, whether you're dining out or you're eating in, or if you're going to go to a movie, go to Metro. If you're going to Metro Cinema, if you're going to eat out, go to a beautiful restaurant on Alberta Avenue. If you're going to buy ads, I mean, Facebook isn't local, okay, but it does what it's supposed to do. But if you want to do the real-time bidding, if the RTBs, and you want to work
Hey,
within the
Josh.
Google infrastructure, what's that?
Sorry, just want to interject. We have a question in the chat,
Sure.
and it was something I wanted to touch on as well with Google Ads. Google Ads are indeed very expensive. You
Mhm.
cannot just spend $20 on Google Ads the way that you can with Facebook.
This is
And
a larger marketing system. Yeah, absolutely.
yes, so for the person who's asking about Google Ads being expensive, yes, they are much more expensive. Um, and again, if you've got a very small budget, that might not be where you want to spend it. The other thing I find with Google Ads is with like the Facebook advertising system, it's very immediate. Like you can see the
Mhm.
results coming in with very little delay. And with Google, there's quite a bit of delay. So it's also not what I would recommend if you have a very short time frame. You know,
Good point. Yep,
with Facebook, if your event is 1 week away and you want to give it a little extra $20 boost, you can do that. With Google, if
absolutely.
you only have 1 week, you're not gonna know in time if it worked.
That's right.
To
You'll
make
get
any
that data
adjustments.
afterwards
Yes.
to plan for your next campaign. Going
Yes.
through Google AdWords, you don't have to spend as much as if you're working with a third party, because a third party like Postmedia,
Yeah.
who is an official Google supplier, not one of those third party ones that Google's trying to get rid of, will and BLP has enough buys enough stuff, and there may be other people that you could work with where a $500 investment can be stretched quite a bit,
Yeah.
and
Like if
but
you have
that's with
more
a third
time
party.
and more money, it's worth doing.
Hmm.
Like if you're doing like an ongoing event, something that is continuing for a month or 6 months, or
Hmm.
you're doing something every month for a year, this can be a good way to go about it, and you can manage to spend a little less money on Google that way if you spread it out pretty far.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you need more time and more money.
Stretch it.
Yeah,
And
to
that's
stretch.
part of that's part of the marketing planning. I mean, Katie brings up a really good point.
Yeah,
If you find that something isn't going the way you want it to go and you have a week and you want to really get at it, by all means, jump into social and push that thing through your social media ecosystem, a very defined targeted audience. If you've been planning for 3 months for your project, then Google Ads may be a place to go for 3 or 4 weeks prior, and or 2 weeks, and it will reach a much broader audience potentially, depending on what your parameters are. In the case of some of the projects we've been working on, we can go coast to coast for a reasonable amount of money when you're talking about buying massive ad campaigns versus and more money when you're talking about your small boost on a social
yeah.
media platform.
This is why you're seeing things like, you know, uh, Ford cars on these kind of ads, and Coca-Cola, and not so much, neighborhood pub has drink specials,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah,
Um,
you're
because they
absolutely
have
right.
a larger budget, more time, more planning, you
Yep.
know. Yeah,
Now, some of those ads, I mean, hey, if you've got $50, give it to Gig City. Put a big box ad on
yeah,
their website.
yeah,
Edify is a little bit more expensive, but it's local. And the reason Postmedia is in here is because the Edmonton Journal has been a huge supporter over 100 years of the kind of stuff that we all do, and they have a pretty um, what's the word? Um, they have
yeah,
they have an audience, but it's a very loyal audience, and there are a lot of people who still read the news, who dig the kind of stuff that we're talking about, and they as a 100-year plus brand, there's it's a safe place to park your dollars to ensure that it's a quality, it's a quality site that people are gonna see. The
yeah,
same with Edify, same with Gig City. I mean,
yeah.
these places
So
we
just to make sure, sorry, Josh,
yep,
we're talking here about local websites that sell digital advertising,
that's right.
which we recommend that you give that a shot too, because it might not be quite as cheap as a Facebook ad, but you're going to get the kind of consumers who support local things. This is a good way to get access to them, because you're not sure, even if you have the right targeting on Facebook, if you've reached the kind of people who will spend their money supporting local things. And when you use local websites that sell digital ads, you do get that. You know, people are looking at local things, buying local things. Sorry,
especially
Josh.
right now.
Yes.
And no, don't apologize. This is how we do our stuff. We talk
I
over
know.
each other. People love it. And but it also allows those kinds of outlets to in turn cover the kind of work that we all do, and
Yeah.
that has a reciprocal effect. I think it's absolutely essential to be a part of the social media ecosystem for the work that we're all doing. But
Yeah.
if your budget does expand and if you have a larger time frame to work with, then to consider some of the bigger targeted digital ad opportunities, or in the case of Gig City, very specific audiences that go looking for content that is relevant to them from a, say, a music or art perspective, and we'll see the kind of work that you're doing because you're involved in that space.
Yeah. And then I think we're at the end here, but there's one more thing I wanted to just touch on. Some of you may notice that we didn't talk at all about Twitter ads.
Or YouTube.
Or YouTube. But specifically with Twitter ads, we talked about it before, and just neither of us like them, and we haven't had a lot of success with them. And
Just because
and
we don't like them doesn't mean you don't have to like
doesn't
them.
mean you can't try it. For me, most of the advertising I've ever done is for event-based things, selling tickets or trying to gather attendance. And I would say Josh is in pretty much the same boat. And I have a feeling that Twitter ads work better for, like, there's someone on here who's doing like book launches and that kind of thing. That might work on Twitter. I feel like that's the kind of audience, but I find their ads really spammy and I don't like them and I don't use them. Doesn't mean you can't or shouldn't.
No,
Just haven't
absolutely.
worked for me, but
There's a quality aspect to the stuff that we're talking about too.
yeah.
And if you spend a lot of time as a brand in a particular social platform, be it Facebook, because you have a lot of text content, as we've discussed before in the previous presentation, or if you're a highly visual artist, because you have visual art, or you're a photography and you spend a lot of time on Instagram, consider spending your dollars in that space as well. Twitter may not be the place for you if you're heavily into photography. That's okay. Like Katie said, just because you may not have all of the visual sizes you need for every single potential tall block and big block ad size, it also doesn't mean that you have to spend on every single platform. We've never gotten to TikTok and any of this stuff. And I'll tell you what I told Kate, what I said last time when I went to Katie's office one morning and said, I was reading about TikTok last night. Should we do it? And she turned in her chair and said, no, don't ever talk to me again. She didn't, that last part, the second part I made up just now, but she did say no.
Yeah. Well, and again, I stand by, depending on how much capacity you have, keep things to a minimum. Like, the reason we talk about Facebook, Twitter, Instagram is sort of like the big three is because, yeah, you can get Snapchat and YouTube and TikTok. Yes. And I really like TikTok now.
Oh, really?
Pandemic times, I'm all over TikTok.
Wow, I didn't know
Yeah,
this.
for sure. And again, if TikTok is the right fit for your organization, which someone is putting in the chat right now, then definitely use it. But the key is that you can't just use it one time and then forget about it. You have to incorporate it and use it in an ongoing way and use it consistently over time. And if you can do that, then use whatever you want. That's why the huge brands, big companies, they have everything because they have a whole staff of people running it.
Exactly.
But maybe, like, if TikTok appeals to your demographic, which someone's just put in the chat, maybe you don't even use Twitter, because the people who use
Or
TikTok maybe
Facebook.
don't use Twitter. Or maybe
Forget
there's
Facebook.
something else you take out of your capacity to make room for TikTok. Or maybe you can add it on and you have room for that.
Yep.
You know, in the workload.
If you've got an older demographic that appreciates the kind of work you produce, and you want to take a stab at appealing to a younger generation to try it, you're going to have to tailor your content so that it fits those platforms like TikTok, in the same way that you're going to have to find the right content visually to fit Google Ads, or the right B-roll, or the right video to pre-roll on YouTube. It's just a matter of experimenting and growing as you develop your plan, as you stick to your plan, as you develop, as you widen it over years, rather than just project to project.
Yeah, it's just a matter of like having the capacity for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and then just on this last slide, you've noticed I've put up like a few of the pieces of software that I think are useful that you might want to try. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, there's someone on there that uses everything. I'm so
sweet.
impressed.
Let's talk to that person.
Yeah, great.
Okay, well, that is the end. Let's listen to what people have to tell us. How do I get out of this
the
presentation?
formal presentation. David, I don't know if you want to jump in on anything.
I'll be here, but you guys are doing such a great job that
We're good?
Oh,
Okay. All right, yeah, does anyone have any questions? I suppose you could type them in the chat, or you could turn on your microphone at this point if you have a question. Is there a hand raising thing on this app thingy?
sadly, no.
Okay,
So just dive in.
right. How do you
Gail.
hi,
determine?
Gail.
This is a question that maybe there's one in the chat here, Josh, that maybe is better for you. Someone has said, how do you determine demographics?
Oh, hey, Susie, how's it going?
Do you want to take a stab at that one?
Do you want to come up and chat with us, or do you want to stay off?
Just
It's okay
typed
if
it
you
in
don't
there.
want to.
Yeah.
The when it comes to demographics, it's going to be.
Sorry, for those of you who are watching the recording, Susie has just informed us that she's not putting on her camera because, and I quote, I need a shot. Thank you. Joshua, I interrupted. Please continue.
No, that's okay. Okay, so I've determined demographics, and I've had success two ways working here with BLP and in my past. One of them is research. It can be just as simple, and we don't have the capacity right now because we don't have crowds, but you research by talking to people as they come into your lobby, say, or as you're selling your product at a farmer's market, for example, or you're doing a presentation of something, and you ask people to put down some basic information about where they live, what their age range is, what their income level is, and you're asking them to do it so that you can better target advertising so that they can get certain content. What would they like to see in their e-news, in their behind the scenes? What do you follow? Are you on TikTok or are you on Facebook? And if you find that 80% of your audience gravitates to one way or the other, well, then you have a lot of information that you can use to create a campaign around that key 80%. It's the 20% now that you can focus a new campaign around attracting more people like that, so that not to alienate your 80%, but to grow your 20%, so that as the 80% falls off, that 20% fills in as it goes. And there are a lot of people have this nailed. I get frustrated sometimes. I'm a big CFL fan, a big football fan, and I'm a big fan of the Edmonton Football Club. And they tried too hard a few years ago to attract much younger people by having easier access to alcohol, places to party, not necessarily there for the game, and loud music in between plays. And I think those kinds of concepts are really important because it grows your audience. But it alienated the 70-year-old, like my father, a season ticket holder who'd been buying that ticket for 45 years. And he said, well, I don't like that. And it started to annoy me too. I've only been buying for 30 years. But that balance is ongoing, even from a programming perspective. What are we going to program? What are we going to produce that makes sure that several people can enjoy this particular project that we're working on.
Yeah, or maybe, Susie, if you're trying to figure out demographics for your use, is even just think of it as like an either or. Like, are the people that you want to target older or younger? Are they more likely to be men or women? Which I hate gender-based mark, but
Yeah.
it's out there. There's a tick box for it in your ads, so you can use it. Are they people who have kids or don't have kids? Are they, students, or are they retired? And if you can ask yourself a few of those questions, you might have somewhere to start.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you can be like Metro Cinema, where you program certain things for those who don't have kids on Wednesday nights or Friday nights, and then Saturday mornings for those of us who have kids. I love it.
And then I think Gail has the next question.
Hi, thanks for all of this. It's been really helpful. I particularly appreciated learning that under $1 per click is what you're aiming for. I had not thought of it that way. Of course, that makes sense now. I have to confess, because we are a nonprofit and a charity, and one person does many jobs.
Yes.
I hate analytics. I just hate looking at them. I hate trying to decipher them. I hate trying to plan Facebook so I don't spend too much money, or suddenly it shoots up to $150 and I wonder where it went, even though we've placed a business ad. Please, God, help.
Yes. So again, are you using the business manager or the, okay.
Yes.
I find it's easier to make a mistake with the budgeting in the boosts than it is in the business manager. Because I think the boost says like, oh, $7, and then it's like per day, or things like that. There is also a function in there somewhere that I can't think of off the top of my head that you can set an overall budget for your account.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it'll just stop.
It's okay, Gail. We've all been there before. I mean, keep in mind again, like we said, they're private companies, and they may sell that they're out for your best interest, but they truly do want to make money. So they will do everything they can to get that $7 to 150. And once, and it is deeply time consuming, but some of the possibilities we've provided today hopefully will allow you to go in and schedule it so that you can set up your campaign and you put it in for timelines and you make sure that you turn it off come March 31st. It ends. It will not come back. And then you make sure that it never goes beyond that budget that you set.
Right.
Yeah.
I just want small elves to come and just do this for me. I can schedule the ads, I can write the ads, I can write the copy. The analytics. Like
it takes a long time.
You check several times a day. Who has time?
Oh, that's just Katie. She's such a data nerd.
I worked a lot of unpaid overtime to do that. Can't help myself.
But go back, Gail, to what we were talking about before. It's still capacity. If you don't feel like you have the time to do analytics, then don't sweat it.
Yeah.
Look at your impressions. Look at your timeline. That's what you're working towards.
Yeah, but part of the analytics it allows you to make adjustments and changes to make it more effective. But if you don't have time to do that, you've got it out
within the
there.
campaign.
Yeah.
Maybe make the adjustment from one project to the next, so that you're not doing it day to day, but you're doing it month to month, depending on what it is that you're working on.
Those stats stay there. So before you make your next ad is maybe when you go back and look at those analytics, right? Say like, did that work? Oh, maybe I should do it a little different. Or, oh, that worked really well. How do I do it the same way again? Yeah, I do understand that. I do. I enjoy the analytics, and I know that's abnormal.
Just put your email address at the end so we can, call on you to
bother me with analytics. Yeah. Yeah.
She'll be your data elf.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? I hope it's because we told you everything you want to know.
Yay.
Because everyone's brain is full and they're off now, checking out the Google Business portal and figuring out how to actually do all these things. So one of the
Awesome.
things that we like to do at the end of these sessions is to invite everyone who is comfortable in doing so to turn on your cameras, turn on your microphones. We will blow out the quality of the presentation. Everything will get all blurry. I don't care. It's a chance for us to see each other and to show our appreciation for Joshua and Katie as they've helped all of us through this brave new world. So please join me in thanking Joshua and Katie.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So again, I will be sending out a link to this once it's populated on our YouTube channel. Joshua, do you think that would it be all right if I also sent out the PowerPoint that you sent me, or is that?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Please do. Yeah.
So that way you've got a handy reference in a number of different ways. But thank you all so much. I wish you all the best with this, and enjoy the rest of your day.